Good afternoon, morning, evening, night, good orbit of the second moon, wherever you are in the universe, wherever you're watching this. And I'm here today in my sexy purple hat that's keeping the light off my head so I don't look as bald as I really am. Because it's late at night and there's no natural light, so the image is a bit rubbish and it's probably going to be a little bit blurry. Anyway, I digress. We're here to talk about this beautiful thing here, which is my Deamplifier box, which is a direct recording box with some really cool features that you don't see anywhere else. I've been planning to do this for years and I'm going to do it this year. So what sets it apart from other recording solutions is the ability to alter the filter frequency. So this is, first of all, this is not an IR simulator. If you want to emulate and simulate a speaker precisely, there are a million options that will do that. This is an analog filtering system, more like the old H&K Redbox, the classic, or in fact a lot of other recording systems which have all used the same basic principle, which is a second order roll-off filter for the bass, which is sort of a mild roll-off, and a fourth order roll-off for the high frequencies, which is pretty much what a speaker does. And what sets this apart is the fact you can adjust those frequencies independently. You can adjust the low and the two stages of the high, and so you can make your analog speaker sim sound fatter, brighter, smoother, richer, less deep roll-off, more steep roll-off. Do really cool things with it. That's the first thing. Or you can just dial it out and use it straight into your computer and add an IR afterwards if you wish. You know, it doesn't stop you doing that. It also has a headphone out with an insert so that you can do monitoring completely independently. It has its independent volume control for the headphones, and the insert is just for the headphones. So you can put a little reverb in there or something so you can listen to your guitar at the level you like with some reverb or jamming along and still record that direct signal to the desk. Of course, there's a balanced out to go to the desk, and it has a speaker in through which can take hundreds and hundreds of watts of speaker. It's not a load box. Come back to that. So you can plug your speaker from out straight into there, and out of that into a speaker or into a load box or into any other device that will suck up the power of your tube amp. This is just like, if you imagine, it's like looking at the signal and saying, hi, that's what the signal's doing. I'm just going to take a copy of that almost. It doesn't load. So this lets you use it with any amplifier of any type, any other load box if you've got one, any other speaker cab that's existing, internal load on an amp. It's completely independent. And this is what I wanted all along. The idea that your recording DI from your amp is agnostic. It's separate from these your load box or whatever. Because most of these load boxes that have a line out on them, you're stuck. You know, to me they're two separate devices. You've got your load box. There's many different sorts, and as I've said in other videos, they all have many different tones and many different qualities. And then the line out on the one is just like a dropper resistor that drops the voltage. It doesn't do anything good. Or it'll have some fixed filtering, a la Redbox style EQ, which might be what you want or not. Or if you really spend loads of moolah, it could have an IR simulated DSP in there or something really thing. And again, maybe it's what you want, maybe it's not. The idea of this is you can dial out the filtering and just use it as a pure clean box with buffers and low noise, or you can dial in the filtering, use it analog, you can use the filtering real time, so you could listen to a stage mix while sending it to a desk. You could do it for recording, and you can even do it for reamping, because yes, there is a line in over there. And so you don't actually have to connect an amp to it, you can just use this as a really cool filter bank to filter your guitar or to put it in the loop while bouncing down. It has 101 uses. Now, this is mostly designed. I need to build a test model before I launch it in any way, and that's something I'm going to do over coming weeks. And really, that's all I've got to say about it at the moment. So, clean, independent way. I mean, to be honest, even if you just want a headphone amp, I find it's really hard to get a good guitar headphone amp. Here's the thing, you could just throw at the end of your pedal chain or your amp with the line in, if it's pedal chain, speaker in, if it's after your amp, back a pair of headphones in, and you've got a really nice powered headphone to listen to. It's a mono headphone because it's a mono insert. I could put two jacks on, make a stereo insert. I think it doesn't need that. That's not what it's for. Monitoring is generally done in mono in these cases if you want the tight thing. So I think it suits its purpose as a good headphone amp for guitar specific use. Also, like I say, analog filter bank, which you can just use with anything. Yeah, I'm repeating myself. So, how did we get here? What's this about? This is. You could just stop watching here if you don't care about the history. I've told you everything you need to know. It's going to look like that, be in a metal box. That's it. Right, on to the history, because I think this is kind of cool. So a long time ago, in an ancient time. Gosh, what are we talking? 2008? I think I sold my first hotbox around 2008. So I started out by building something that was a bit simpler even than this one, as a power attenuator. And I did this a long time ago for myself, for my little 50-watt Selma, which is perched over there. And I simply whacked 3 50-watt resistors in a metal box, not knowing really what I was doing. I thought, that's a 150-watt resistor, it should be fine for a 50-watt amp. Turns out it needed a lot of heat sinking, there's other problems, it got red hot, but actually it was alright. And I was just selling them for like £45 or something at the time. I wasn't really. And lo and behold, loads of people were buying them, they're cheap and simple. And it occurred to me as I was selling them that I could add a line out, which is this version. This is not the first version. It's a slightly later version with the line out, and it was just again, kind of like a dropper resistor. And I actually put, because I was a bit concerned about like spikes. I don't like 70 volt output from your amp or whatever going to a 1 volt preamp. Like, you're going to destroy something. They can't take that. So I actually did some clever stuff with some protection diodes, did a few other bits, but it was a fixed, I can't remember how many volt drop. It was aimed at about 1 volt, and it worked. It was all right, but it sounded like everyone else's. And through making this little early attenuator hotbox, I realised that having the line out in the hotbox sucks, right? You know, you're stuck with it. Because after the novelty wore off, I was like, I don't really like it. The hotbox is great, but the line out's just it's a bit naff, isn't it? So I thought, what if it was a separate thing? That gives a different price range. Then it's 2 products. If you want the line out and the attenuator, you can buy them. If you want one, you can buy one. I thought, that makes sense. Why does no one do that? And so I started working, and I made a little simple version. And this is literally the same thing as what you've just looked at, but in a different box. And I sold these for a while. I don't remember, they were very handmade, and again, just a bit of protection resistors, a dropper. They worked, did the job. These were actually like a mini load box. They were designed, you can see a little, you might just see 12 watt written there. It's a bit of a lie, that actually, I think. I can't remember what I put in. Oh no, it's not a lie. I put 25 watt resistor in these. So around this time I realised that when you're putting resistors in metal boxes, you have to account for the heatsink. And a 25 watt resistor in a box like this is good for 12 watts, really. You know, and this is another thing all those other manufacturers annoy me with. They go out and they say, we've made a 25 watt attenuator, but you can't push it hard. Please don't go above 10 watts. Well, it's not a 25 watt attenuator, then, is it? It's not a 100 watt attenuator unless you can put 100 watts through it. Don't give me that, don't turn your amp up. I mean, that's the point. Anyway, I digress, ranting. I made this thing, it was alright. I think I sold a few. Honestly, I barely remember it. I was still using the large knobs at the time, which I really liked, but you had to cut the shafts down and mess around. So that was 2017, so I looked up when I actually launched that, and a date stamp somewhere on one of my files said 2017, so it's in that ballpark. So that's quite a while ago, so 7 years ago, so I was selling those. And whilst I was doing that, I worked on a better design because it still didn't sound great, and I came up with this thing which I really loved. I had this idea that why do you need power? You should just be, there's hundreds of watts coming out of your amp. Can I use the hundreds of watts to power it? Turns out you kind of can, but there's lots of compromises, particularly because the power that's coming out of a transformer with 1 million windings that has a high inductance, which means anything you connect it to, it ruins the tone of. It just goes mental. So this thing initially had a bunch of little transformers in it that took that power and did cool things with it. And then I kind of came across these little inductors, and I used the inductors and made this really cool thing with the resonance, and this sounded good. I was dead pleased with it. I sold a bunch of these, and then some dude got in touch with me saying it's not working, it's making this horrible noise, and he investigated, and it turned out he had this phase reverse switch on his amp that I'd never seen that literally swaps the plus and minus on the speaker jack. Now, up to this point, I had assumed that every amp on the minus was connected to earth. Like you'd expect, it's earth and power. I mean, that's what it is. And nearly every amp is. Only this one isn't. It's literally a swap. So I had to pull these off sale immediately, as far as I was concerned. I was like, what? Because of this one freak amplifier design, where they'd just not followed the rules. I mean, when I thought about it, I thought there's no reason you can't swap the plus and minus on a speaker, but only if you assume it's never going to be connected to anything that isn't a speaker. So what would happen with this is obviously you would connect your computer to it, and the computer had an earth to the earth pin, and that earth would then connect through to the amplifier's output, which is all fine, earth to earth to earth to earth, and the signal on the signal line. Great. Only with his amp, if you swap it around, now the earth of your computer is connected to the plus out on the amp, and the earth on the amp is connected to the plus in on your computer. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a recipe for hell on earth. I was like, nope. So, I mean, it's not my design that was bad. It's definitely the amplifier's design. But, I mean, if you want a phase reverse, put in a chip or something that flips the phase. Do not swap the plus and minus. It's like swapping the live and neutral or something. You just don't do it. It was awful. But I couldn't continue selling something knowing that there's this dodgy amp on the market which would just absolutely, I mean, I don't even know what, it would probably ruin your computer, and it would not be my fault. In no way is this my fault. I'm not supposed to second guess the output of a flipping amplifier, but I'm also a company that's this big, and someone comes back to me with blown up amp, I can't fight that in a court of law, really. It's going to cripple me, especially back then. So I just took it all off sale. I thought, no, we need to rethink this. And I've had some problems, like I said, with the inductance and the tone. And it's one of those projects I was like, I know I've got something really amazing here, but I have to rethink it. So, 2019, time rolls on. I start promising people a better burn box. Now I'm only going to scroll this far. It's one of the earliest doodles of 2020, so 4 years ago I'm doing this. I'm thinking, what if I made it active? Let's give it power. Let's accept we need a power supply. It's no big deal. Then it can have a balanced input that's not connected to earth. It has floating inputs, and it couldn't give a rat's ass what the amp's made then. It just doesn't matter. It's floating. It's nothing on the input cares about earth. So that works. And I thought, well, I've got these inductors I'm doing this wound coils and really cool stuff. And I'm really into that. And I was thinking, I could just call the dial how many speakers you have, 1, 2, 4, 6 or 8 speakers, and like simulate that, and then the size of the speaker 6, 8, 10, 12, and simulate that, and then you could do the inductors and switch it. And back then I had this thing that most designers get and most artists, and this is the thing that kills us, right? We have these great ideas in our mind's eye, we can see how they're going to happen, but it's a fiction. I mean, we're just imagining stuff, really. Let's get this right down to brass tacks. We are so creative. We're going, imagine if I grew wings out of my back and had a halo and flew through the sky like a Concorde jet. Yeah, I can imagine that. I can't make that. And it's very hard for us to sort of separate these two things and say, this is the imagination, this is what I can actually make. Because we get really enamored on what we can make. We're just like, I made this. I'm like, this is amazing. I made this. What can't I do? And so I envisaged this, and in my head I figured how it'd be done. And still to this day I've got a rough idea. But it was time consuming and never any time. And they flew on, so I kept drawing different designs and thought, well, what if you could fine tune the amount from those speakers? And I sort of had an idea how that would work. So you pick the resonant frequency and the speaker thing. And then I realised I'd need a bigger box, and I started thinking about how people like a microphone. So here we've got a dynamic mic, condenser mic, and I actually bought, and this is another thing we do. So we're being really creative. We buy in parts. So I bought that box. I've got that box, that actual box, sat in the studio. 2020. It's been sat there 4 years. Coming up 4 years. And this one's just a box that I used for something else. Actually using for reactive load. So I started with this metal box and moved to this bigger box. Now I've even got another design where we show you the long box that I considered a half rack box, and I started thinking about how I'd do the diamp condenser and sketching it. But you know what? I didn't make these things, and I'd do bits of them on a breadboard, and I never had the time. And at the time I just thought, oh, one day I'll sit down and I'll knock this out in an hour. And you know, we've already gone from 2019, 2017 to 2020, you know, and people are badgering me saying, haven't you got something to record with? And I don't have anything to record with. So I thought, by this point, you know, we're in 2020, I thought, well, I need to whack something out. So I sort of cooked up slightly different knobs on the first generation, this, and it was point to point. And it was this point to point 2020 box, and I was going, okay. Again, went back to my original design. So where is it? There we go, 2017 design. But I thought I'll just add a filter on it, a passive filter, and make it slightly more efficiently. And so cook this up. And these are selling. I'm selling these. These are all right. There's no problem with them. They kind of have the earth issue still, you know, in so much. I mean, they do and they don't. I'm like, I just have to trust people. That's stupid. And I'm not really happy with them. But they sound good for the most part. You get the odd person who plugs them in, they sound thin because they're passive again. They're not powered. And I don't really want to sell them, but people want them and they work. And meanwhile, I'm carrying on with these designs for the big Deamplifier. And I've got a Kickstarter page. It's been up for years. Not launched, just sort of in, hey, welcome to... And so last year, by the time last year come, it looks like this, isn't it? Staggering. I've got all sorts of schematics. I've got bits and pieces. But last year I had to make the Grand Classic, and I learned a really tough lesson. Great as this isn't happening for another 4 years. Right, that Grand Classic, I'm so proud of it. The Grand Classic pedal has broke boundaries, it's given me skills, new machines, and I absolutely should not have done it. It was completely stupid. It's nearly killed me, it's nearly burnt me out, it's absolutely bankrupted me, I'm wallopingly in debt, and I can't do that again or the business will close. There is no second chance on that. How the business is still running with what I've done is beyond me. You know, I've done something I'm truly proud of, but the price. And so, as I looked at this all through last year, whilst doing this other pedal, I realised I can't make this yet. That needs more money than I've got to make. It needs more time. It needs custom wound inductors. And one day, I'll make it. But it's a long way away. And so I've written it off the books. Meanwhile, 2023, I'm still selling this. And this is still selling and people quite like it, apart from the fact sometimes that it doesn't quite have the tone you want. And I just thought, what I need to do is find a halfway house. Look, this is realistic. I've been making these for the last near enough a decade or so, in one form or another. Everyone likes them. I use them. We just want a slightly better one. Let's be honest, we want a bit of a better one. Active, so we've got a balanced input, low noise. I thought, what do we really want? You know, headphone out, that's logical. XLR out, it's logical. These are not hard things. Headphone out, find a secure circuit for that everywhere. XLR balanced out, that's been done. No one, I don't need to reinvent the wheel there. These are the sort of things. This is inventing new stuff that doesn't exist. I want to do this. This is cool. But new stuff, as I learned, takes a long, long time. And there's no guarantees with it. None whatsoever. There's no security. When you're doing new stuff, it could take a day. It could take a year. It could take forever and never. So that has to be somewhat at my leisure. Maybe one day. You know, so this, it's not 2023. Maybe then. Maybe 2043. You know, who knows? But what we can do... Oh, I'm not supposed to move that window. I got a bit confused there. I'm supposed to grab this one over here. What I can do is find something between that and between that. And whilst I was thinking of Christmas, I thought, let's make a list of all the technologies I know I can do. And put them in that sort of enclosure that I like, which I know I've got. And I started puddling around and fiddling around, and I thought, here we go. Balanced out, we can do that. Balanced line in, or unbalanced, it doesn't care, we can do that. Power, 9 to 18 volts. Actually, that's probably going to be 9 because I was thinking about it and I thought, I can use a voltage inverter, give it a dual rail, doesn't matter if you don't know what it is, better headroom, better quality. So I have 9 volt in, but internally will run on 18 even if you put 9 volt in. So you can use it with any wall wart and still get 18 volts, perfect. Speaker in through, we've already been doing that, and that's up. You can see I work through. Low pass filter, that's basically the same filter they use on most microphones to get rid of rumble. So that sort of circuit exists, I just have to tune it for what I want. High pass filters, the two types, these sort of exist again. They're just nice standard filters with a variable frequency, and I can use two sorts. I can have one that's non-resonant, like a smooth filter, and one that's resonant with a peak, which simulates the guitar speaker as well, because these have a bit of a peak and hear the brightness, so we can tune them in. Gain, we can do that. Some LEDs, we can do that. Output level, headphone amps, do that. Insert. So everything in this is stuff that already exists separately. And what we have here is something I can realistically do using circuits that I know work, put it together in a sensible time, test it and everything. And that's the lesson in a way, is to separate the creative madman, the creative lunatic, full of these wonderful, crazy ideas, from the reality that my bank balance is only yay big and people don't necessarily need those things. And somewhere in between those two things, between this is what people need and this is what I can afford, and this is what I want to do and it's preposterously out of my budget range and time, somewhere between those things is a thing that is pretty cool, is original, does what people need, I hope, and can be delivered. And so that's how we get to where we are. That's how we get to this. And I was going to differentiate this between the Deamplifier and the active direct recording box, but you know, what a mouthful. No one wants to call it that. And I think that's an image, I can't edit it. I'm just going to call this the Deamplifier. And if and when I ever make the second one, we'll call it the Deamplifier Pro or something, or the Deamplifier 2. This is a really great unit. I'm looking forward to making this. I'm looking forward to kickstarting it. I think there's a lot of lovely quality circuits out of high-end recording gear that I can use in this and make it affordable, realistic, on time, and tick all those boxes. And I hope it excites you as much as it excites me, because I am actually excited with this one. You know, I love filters. Filters are all through my synthesizers, all through everything. I think it's a nice little effect in and of itself, even used as a line in, line out. I think as a headphone amp it's useful, and of course it's a DI, and you can use it as a DI straight to desk. You don't even need, like I say, pedal chain, amp sim, balanced out to desk, regular DI, or high power input with or without a load box, depending how you do it, without a speaker, take a tap off your speaker to your desk. And you know, there's so many ways you could do this. You know, you could have it go from your amp to your speaker, have a pair of headphones to listen in the room while the speaker's being recorded through a mic and you're recording a balanced out. How cool is that? So you'd get a monitoring mix and a direct out, and you'd get, you know, through to mic up your amp, mic up your cab. There's so many ways to use it, and I was thinking this is the right tool. So yeah, there we go. Thank you for listening to my giant waffle. I hope you like it. I hope you support this Kickstarter when I launch it. It will be pretty soon. It'll be February, March 2024, because I don't see any reason this takes longer. I've already sketched out the circuit. Again, learning from lessons before, I will not start this Kickstarter until I have a working unit in my hand, until my machines are programmed, till everything is ready to assemble it, and until the core parts are in my hand. You know, I've learnt lessons about this. If I don't do that, something could surprise me. There could be some change, something might not work, I might have to mess around. So we'll do all of that first. So please follow this Kickstarter until I launch, and we'll get you something good, I promise.